welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The room buzzed with the low hum of mingled conversations and clinking glasses. I stood beside my wife, Clara, at the opulent ballroom of the Grand Royal Hotel, ostensibly there to mingle with potential clients and business partners. But my focus was slipping, drawn more to Clara's restless energy than to the business at hand. "Isn't this just wonderful, James?" Clara beamed, her arm looped through mine as we navigated through the sea of suits and evening gowns. Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, but there was a tension in her smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Absolutely," I replied, though my smile was just as strained. Something felt off tonight, and it wasn't just the stifling atmosphere of corporate schmoozing. As the evening wore on, I noticed Clara's frequent glances toward the entrance. Each time the doors swung open, her body tensed subtly, her gaze sharp and searching. I followed her line of sight but saw nothing out of the ordinary, just guests arriving and the usual hotel staff. "Excuse me for a moment, I need to make a call," Clara whispered, her voice barely carrying over the ambient noise. Before I could respond, she was threading her way through the crowd, her long gown swishing behind her. Left to my own devices, I tried to engage with a few acquaintances, but my thoughts were elsewhere. About 15 minutes later, I decided to step outside for some fresh air. The lobby was quieter, the opulence of the hotel stark against the night sky visible through the tall front windows. That's when I saw them. Clara stood near the entrance, obscured partly by a decorative pillar. She wasn't alone. A man, tall and unfamiliar, was with her. His back was to me, but Clara's face was visible, her expression intense. What struck me the most was her hands, delicately working at the man's belt. A cold shock of realization washed over me. My heart pounded in my ears as I watched, rooted to the spot. They seemed oblivious to the world, caught up in their whispered conversation and furtive actions. The man leaned down, his lips moving close to Clara's ear, and she laughed, a soft, conspiratorial sound that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Gathering my composure, I strode towards them, my footsteps echoing in the quiet lobby. As I approached, Clara's eyes met mine, wide with shock. The man turned, his face registering surprise and then a quick, guarded shift to neutrality. "James. This isn't." "Save it, Clara." My voice was calm, but the anger simmering beneath was palpable. "We're leaving." The ride back to our house was silent, charged with the weight of unspoken accusations and bitter revelations. Once home, I turned to Clara, the woman I thought I knew. "I want you out," I said, my voice devoid of the warmth it once held for her. "James, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. I saw enough." The next day, I contacted a lawyer. The divorce proceedings were quick, spurred on by Clara's guilt and my unyielding drive for retribution. She moved out, and the life we had built together crumbled into a memory tinged with betrayal. As the door closed behind her for the last time, the gravity of it all settled in. My marriage was over, but this was just the beginning. My mind raced with plans for revenge, not violent, but thorough. Clara would realize the full extent of her actions. She had betrayed me, but I would ensure it was she who lost everything in the end. As I sat alone in the quiet of my now too big house, the plans began to take shape. Revenge would be sweet, and I was just getting started. In the weeks following the divorce, the silence of the house was suffocating. I filled my days with work, throwing myself into projects with a ferocity that was both a distraction and a means to an end. I needed something more, something that would truly make Clara feel the weight of her betrayal. It was late one evening when I found myself at the office, the glow of the computer screen the only light in the room. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number lighting up the screen. Curiosity piqued, I swiped to open it. "James, we need to talk. It's about Clara. Meet me tomorrow, 8 p.m. at the old cafe on 5th M. The mysterious nature of the message, signed only with an initial, was intriguing. Was this someone who knew about Clara's infidelity? Or was it something else? Regardless, it was a lead, and I wasn't in a position to ignore it. The next evening found me at the cafe, a nondescript little place that had seen better days. I chose a table in the back, a strategic spot that allowed me a clear view of the entrance. At precisely 8 p.m., a man walked in, scanning the room until his eyes settled on me. He was middle-aged, with a weary look that spoke of hard times. He approached, his hand extended in greeting. "James? I'm Martin. Thanks for coming." We shook hands, and he took the seat opposite me. "What's this about, Martin?" I asked, cutting straight to the chase. Martin sighed, his eyes darkening with seriousness. "It's about Clara. I think you deserve to know the whole truth." I leaned forward, my interest sharpened. "Go on." "She wasn't just cheating on you, James. She's involved in some shady business deals, embezzlement, to be precise. I used to work with her at the firm. I have proof." My mind raced as Martin detailed Clara's involvement in a scheme that siphoned funds from the company. He laid out documents and emails, all pointing to a network of deceit far larger than a simple affair. "I can help you bring her to justice," Martin concluded, his expression grim. "Not just for the infidelity, but for everything else she's done." Revenge had been my initial motive, but this was about justice now. "What do you need from me?" I asked, my resolve hardening. "We need to go to the authorities with this," Martin said. "And I need your testimony. With your help, we can make sure she pays for what she's done." The following days were a whirlwind. We met with lawyers and law enforcement, presenting the evidence Martin had gathered. The legal gears began to turn, slowly at first, then picking up speed as the case against Clara solidified. Throughout it all, I couldn't shake a lingering sense of disbelief. Clara, the woman I had loved, was not only unfaithful but also a criminal. The dual nature of her betrayal stung with a fresh pain, but it also steeled my resolve. As the case moved forward, I realized that my journey was far from over. There were still secrets to uncover, layers of deceit that went deeper than I had imagined. And I was at the center of it all, driven not just by a desire for retribution, but by a need to uncover the truth, no matter how dark it might be. Clara had started this chain of events with her betrayal, but I would be the one to end it. My quest for revenge had morphed into a crusade for justice, and I was ready for whatever came next. The storm was gathering, and I was at its heart, waiting for the moment to strike. As the legal battle against Clara intensified, I found myself digging deeper into her life, uncovering layers I had never known existed. It was a dreary Thursday afternoon when I received a call from Detective Larson, the officer in charge of Clara's case. "James, we've uncovered new evidence. Can you come down to the station? There's something here you need to see for yourself." The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. I drove to the station, a mix of anticipation and dread knotting in my stomach. Upon arrival, Larson led me to a dimly lit room where several photographs were spread across a table. "What am I looking at?" I asked, my eyes scanning the array of images and documents. "Surveillance photos," Larson replied, pointing to a series of grainy shots. "These were taken over the past few months. It's not just the embezzlement. Clara's been meeting with known criminals, some with ties to organized crime." The revelation hit me like a blow. The photos showed Clara laughing and shaking hands with menacing figures, her demeanor far removed from the woman I thought I knew. "We think she's involved in something bigger, possibly laundering money through the business," Larson continued. "Your coming forward has blown the lid off this whole operation." I felt a surge of vindication, tempered by the shock of her deeper deceptions. "What do you need from me?" I asked, ready to assist in any way that could hasten her downfall. Keep a low profile, Larson advised. We're moving in on her associates, and we don't want to spook them. You might be approached for information, or worse, targeted for retaliation. Stay alert. The following days were tense. I increased security at my home and stayed vigilant. One evening, as I reviewed the evidence from Larson, my doorbell rang. Cautious, I checked the security camera and saw a man in a hooded jacket, his face obscured. Opening the door, I kept the chain latched. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steady. The man hesitated, then spoke in a low tone. "You're James, right? I have information about Clara. It's urgent." I opened the door fully, allowing him in. Once inside, he lowered his hood, revealing a face I vaguely recognized, one of Clara's former colleagues. "My name's Eric," he said, looking around nervously. "I worked with Clara. I know what she's been doing, and I want out. I can't be part of this anymore." "Why come to me?" I questioned, my distrust evident. "Because you're the only one fighting her. I've seen what she's capable of, and it's going to get worse. She's planning something big, a final move to cover her tracks and disappear with a fortune." Eric's words were a mix of fear and regret. He provided details of a planned transaction, a large sum of money about to be moved offshore. He handed me a flash drive. "This has all the proof you need." Grasping the flash drive, I knew this was the break we needed. "I'll take this to the police," I said, my resolve hardening. "No, wait." Eric grabbed my arm. "She's watching the police too. You need to go directly to the FBI. It's the only way to stop her now." The weight of the situation settled over me. Betrayal, crime, and now a dash to the finish line against an enemy who was always 2 steps ahead. "Thank you, Eric. I'll handle it from here," I assured him, more determined than ever. As Eric left, I looked at the flash drive in my hand, aware that the next steps would be crucial. The game of cat and mouse was nearing its end, and I was not about to let Clara slip through the cracks. The drive to the FBI office was fraught with tension, every shadow a potential threat. But the determination to see justice served, to end the cycle of betrayal, drove me forward. Clara had started this fire, but I was going to extinguish it, once and for all. The final chapter in my crusade against Clara began under the glaring fluorescent lights of the FBI office, where I handed over Eric's flash drive with trembling hands. The agent in charge, a stern woman named Agent Faulkner, accepted the evidence with a nod, her eyes piercing. "This could be the breakthrough we needed," she said, plugging the drive into her computer. The screen flickered, then displayed documents and transaction records in rapid succession. "We've suspected a larger network for months. This confirms it." "I want to be there when you take her down," I said, the words out before I could reconsider. Agent Faulkner looked up, assessing. "It's not usual protocol, but given your unique involvement, I think it can be arranged. You'll need to stay out of the way and follow my lead." 2 days later, I was in a bulletproof vest, standing beside Agent Faulkner as we approached Clara's last known hideout, a secluded warehouse by the docks. The air was heavy with the threat of a storm, the sky a bruise-colored canvas above us. "We strike on my signal," Faulkner whispered into her radio. Teams of armed agents were positioned, invisible in the shadowed corners of the early morning darkness. The signal was given, a silent gesture, and the world erupted into chaos. Doors were breached, shouts rang out, and within moments, the warehouse was swarmed by FBI agents. Clara was found in a back office, her composure shattered as she realized the extent of the trap laid out for her. Her eyes found mine across the room, filled with a mix of fury and fear. "James! You did this," she spat out as agents handcuffed her. "For everything you've done, this is justice," I replied, my voice cold. As Clara was led away, Agent Faulkner handed me a folder. "There's more you should see," she said grimly. Inside the folder were surveillance photos and intercepted messages not just of Clara, but of Martin, the man who'd initially brought me evidence against Clara. To my shock, the communications revealed that Martin had been manipulating both sides, playing me against Clara to cover his own criminal dealings. I confronted Martin later that day, the FBI having picked him up on their broader sweep. He was smug, even in handcuffs. "You were just a pawn, James. We never thought you'd take it this far." Enraged by his betrayal and deceit, I used my media contacts to expose not only Clara's and Martin's criminal activities but also their personal betrayals and manipulations. The story hit the news like a bombshell, ruining any chance of a quiet trial and ensuring that their faces were synonymous with treachery and deceit. Clara and Martin were tried and convicted, their sentences harsh and unforgiving. As for me, the taste of revenge was bitter. I had dismantled the network of betrayal that had surrounded me, but at a steep personal cost. The final severing of ties came not during Clara's arrest, nor in the courtroom, but afterward, when I looked at the ruins of my past relationships and chose to walk away for good. I left the city, started anew in a place where no one knew my name or my history. The scars of betrayal, however, were not so easily left behind. They shaped my new life, in a world where trust was a commodity I could no longer afford. In the quiet solitude of my new existence, I often thought of the destruction left in my wake. Clara, Martin, and I had been consumed by our deceptions, and in the end, it was hatred, the hatred of betrayal, that had parted us forever. As the sun set on my first day in a new town, the peace I felt was not from victory, but from liberation. No longer bound by the past, I could finally look to the future. But the lesson remained: in the game of betrayal, there are no winners, only survivors.